Did you know that your small actions can lead to big changes? What role can you and I play in building a sustainable future? How are the world's leading companies turning sustainability into a competitive edge? Join me as we discuss this topic and many more in this episode. Today, we would just be exploring topics on sustainability, and I thought to start with your last position in the warehouse group. I know you did a lot of transformation for the warehouse group, which is one of New Zealand's largest retail group. It would be nice to share some of the things you did there, and in the same vein, share with us some of the best practices of top sustainable companies.
Everything I've learned at the warehouse group and before the warehouse group is what I've tried to encapsulate in the book I'm launching next week called What Can We Do by Friday? So we're going to talk about that today, I hope, in greater detail. What I've done at the warehouse group is essentially to embed sustainability in everything we do in the entire value chain of the organization. From the way we bought goods, we moved goods, we sold them to our customers, and also in the way we organized our finance, our governance, the management of the risk. So I would say that we really did a good job to insert and embed sustainability in everything we did. For those who don't know here, I should say the warehouse group was and is the largest publicly listed retail group in New Zealand with a dominant market share across categories. And you could easily compare the warehouse to Walmart or Tesco if you wanted to make it simple for our listeners.
Right. So you talking about your book, and I've had the opportunity to take a sneak peek at the book. Quite a number of concepts there. I like by the way, I like the title of the book, which is What Can We Do by Friday? And some of the concepts you talked about, the marshmallow test. We don't need another $600 sick post. Tell me more about the book, because what you said is the book is a practical guide to sustainability. And the question is, a lot of times you want to start sustainability, we don't know where to start. So for companies and for individuals, what is the starting journey for sustainability?
So, all the ingredients of sustainability transformation are connected and they are all necessary at the same time. But as we know, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So the book is about how do we create a mindset and a culture of sustainability in organizations. What we are going through these days in the world is a battle of the narratives. We have a narrative that says that sustainability is an add-on that is complex and expensive. That's one narrative. There is another narrative that says that sustainability is an opportunity that can open up a competitive advantage, build culture and engagement, open to new innovation. And so I believe that we are in that world where these two narratives compete one with the other. The book is doing the job to share with others how do we create a culture of sustainability and climate action. And it does it by using simple and playful and sometimes provocative stories and short stories that can inspire the reader about taking action. Each of the story, and there are 52 stories in the book, one per week. Therefore, the title, What Can We Do by Friday? Each of the story closes with a short paragraph, which is, what can you do by Friday? And the invitations that we give in these paragraphs are very simple. Some of them are technical, but most of them are about mindset. And the mindset is always about doing, about moving from planning to action. That's the key message from the book.
Nice. So you talked about the different narratives about sustainability. One narrative I would like us to explore today is sustainability as a value add, not just as compliance, but as a value add. It would be nice to get your perspective on how you were able to present sustainability as a value add in your organization, and perhaps share with us some of the success stories that you had.
So I like that question very much, Temi, because when we talk about value and sustainability, we also need to talk about financial value, economic value, and commercial value. And I am going to be a little provocative here, which is to say that I think the sustainability community is doing a poor job at framing the value at stake of sustainability risks and opportunities. The committee has not done a good job at doing a rigorous discipline cost benefit analysis of sustainability ambition, initiatives, target, resources, and capabilities required to achieve the goals of the net zero transition plan. And we have a better job to do here. So I'd like to throw an invitation out there. And the invitation is, let's become better and stronger at working with the CFO, at working with our finance team, at presenting a cost benefit analysis that the leadership and the board can understand and embrace. And so that we can really continue to deliver sustainability initiatives across the value chain, whatever sector, whatever industry you work on. The transformation of sustainability is gradual. It's one that takes on every aspect of the organization, step by step, depending on the materiality, depending on the opportunity, and depending on the timing, depending on the maturity of the technologies and solutions that are available to deliver sustainability improvement in the way we do business. And so, again, to make the change from the current state of doing business to the sustainability solutions that we need to embed in our value chain and supply chain and operation and systems of customer engagement and so forth. To do that, we again need to be much better at the cost benefit analysis. And I invite all the sustainability professionals to focus on that.
Because I can imagine that businesses have competing budgets, competing needs. So, how were you able to sell some of these products or present these opportunities to management in your organization?
I repeat, it's about mindset and culture. Mm. That's sort of the easy answer I have. The second answer I'm going to give you is that you spoke about competing priorities. You use that word, competing priorities. And I think that, again, if you are a sustainability leader or if you have the sustainability mandate as part of your role, you need to recognize that you are competing against every other priorities of the organization. You're competing against the technology and digital transformation, operations, logistics. All of them have their own agenda, and you in the sustainability function, you're competing against all of them. So using the law of competition is something that's been in practice forever. It sometimes requires to have a louder voice. It sometimes requires to be more seductive. It sometimes requires to act as a salesman. It requires to convince, engage, and advocate for a vision where sustainability is a growth engine, when it delivers market share, when it allows again for innovation. So what I'm describing is not a magic formula, but on the contrary, a reality check where sustainability leaders need to understand priorities and the rule of the game of how do you influence organizations to achieve the transformation that we need to arrive in a net zero economy. So that is sort of the key message. Now, if you step back for a second, the amount of data and knowledge that we have and insights that we have today on sustainability and climate is phenomenal. I mean, we know the facts. There's no hidden story here. So if you are a sustainability leader today, you do have all the ingredients you need to drive the transformation. And I repeat it, any sector, whether you are in the automobile, transportation, construction, the food system, in every single sector, you have the fact, the data, the insights, the arguments you need to drive the transformation. So the job is certainly not easy. No one said it would be, but it can be done. It should be done. In the book, there is a story called What Would Roger Do? And that's the story of Roger Bannister. I'm not sure if you guys know Roger Bannister. Fabulous story. In Oxford, 1954. Roger Bannister, for the first time, broke the 4-minute mile. It's the first time in the 100 year that in the running and athletic category, we were timing. It's the first time a human being breaks the 4-minute mile. We thought it was out of the law of gravity. Once he broke the 4-minute mile, 1 month later, an Australian broke the 4-minute mile. And a few weeks later, another runner broke the 4-minute mile. So what Roger Bannister did is show the world that the 4-minute mile was achievable for human beings. Well, move that to sustainability. And think for a second that a CEO or a CFO would embrace the net zero and the transition plan and make it sort of the platform of the company's strategy and success. And think about the number of CEO who do that after. And so I'm not saying there is no Roger Bannister in the corporate world out there. There are some. I mean, if you talk about Paul Polman, or if you talk about the CEO of ING, if you talk about Larry Fink and the positions he's been taking around climate, there are many Roger Bannister in the corporate world that are showing us that sustainability can be a growth engine. But I still want the listeners to reflect on these stories, because these are very powerful stories that can inspire a real, deep, profound transformation of economic systems, the one transformation that we need today to essentially live in a better world, right? I mean, what we're trying to do is pretty simple here, guys. We're just trying to save a few 100 million lives, which are the victims of pollution, of air pollution, and other forms of environmental degradation that we experience every year in the world. So I think we can get there, but it just requires to work harder at it.
I have two follow-on questions. You started by talking about mindset and culture. And the CSO needs to have several hats. You could be a salesperson, you could be the loudest in the room. Now, the question is, what is the ideal CSO? I've seen CSOs that have strong finance backgrounds. I've seen CSOs that act as good communicators and they work with the corporate communication teams. I've seen good CSOs more integrated towards HR, what should be the ideal CSO? Which CSO can really move the needle from your experience?
So yes, absolutely. CSO can move the needle, and I think it needs to be a little bit of all of what you listed here. I think above everything, he needs to be very good with numbers. He needs to be an excellent analyst and capable of telling the story of what he's trying to achieve and why, and again, the benefit. And engage the leadership, engage the board, engage the decision makers, and then energize the base, and then sell it to customers. So that's again managing all the stakeholders around the table. Oh, I forgot to mention the CSO also needs to represent the company to external stakeholders, to government officials, and the regulatory bodies to understand where regulation is going and influence regulation whenever needed, and at least input into the regulatory making process so that government understand what are the blockers and unlockers for corporate to transition to a net zero economy. So that's the role of the CSO. Um, it's a complex role. It's an exciting role. It's an important role, and especially during the current moment when the words, the language, and the positions around sustainability, ESG, are being attacked from every side. Um, During this moment, when the decision making is complex, that's when you need a good, strong CSO to drive the conversation in a non ideological way, in a way that helps corporate create value and adapt to a fast moving, complex environment. Yes, that's probably the role of the CSO at large.
So, what is the role of all the players regarding sustainability?
I think we all need to move into action. Doing is what matters. Each of us at our individual level, we either act as citizen, as community leader, or as managers and corporate executives. So um, we can all take action in that role we play again at different moments of our life. You know the trolley problem introduced by the philosopher in that paper. It's called Abortion and Doctrine of Double Effect. So it's about choice making. The choice making when the right option is not obvious. And so a trolley or a train is heading toward five people, and they are tied to a track and they cannot move. And you stand there and you're next to a lever. And if you push the lever, you can divert the train onto another track where one person is tied up. 5 person, 1 person. Do you pull the lever? So you sacrifice one to save five, or you do nothing and you let the trolley kill the original five people. So you can be a bystander, or you can act and reduce destruction, but not without cost.
Right.
Seems obvious, right? You choose the lesser evil and you kill one. And you probably know I'm going there. The world is now going a global scale trolley problem. So do you look away and let the trolley maintain its relentless course, or do you help pull the lever? Even if you know there will be pain, maybe for you, but if you delay, it might be more tomorrow. So that's, I think, the type of question we need to ask ourselves as we handle the questions around sustainability decision making and the act of turning it into action and doing in decision making in organizations as part of the sustainability role. Yes.
As I sit back, if I didn't consider myself a sustainability or someone who is passionate about sustainability, and I read a lot of the narratives out there, it would seem like, sustainability is a buzzword, it's a big word. What exactly are we talking about, right? I'd like us to discuss very practical steps or practical things about sustainability. So there are opportunities, and what I have seen, by the way, Corporate Night released the top 100 sustainable companies, and they had different metrics. For example, the share of their profitability. I love that they reflected profitability because it's very easy to focus a lot on sustainability and preach about the good things and not also highlight the profitability that comes with sustainability. So I love that they highlighted profitability. I love that they highlighted the investments these top companies are making, sustainable investments. So, two questions for you regarding that. One is, what are the opportunities for companies saying, you know what, I've had enough of all this noise sustainability. Now I want to become active and embed sustainability in my strategy. One, what are the opportunities for sustainable investments? And two, what are the practical ways? What are the must haves or must do's for those kind of companies?
The vast majority of publicly listed company and Fortune 500 companies have already made a significant amount of effort on sustainability in terms of framing the opportunity. We're not starting from scratch here, as we know. In general, people start doing a materiality assessment, so that depending on the sector where you are, you understand your areas of impact. Obviously, if you are in the construction sector, it's different than if you are in retail, right? If you are in the energy sector, it's different than if you are in housing or hospitality. If you are in the farming sector, each sector has its own impact area. So once you've done your materiality assessment, you understand what is the value at stake with each of the impact area. Normally, you do that exercise either as part of your climate risk disclosure, if you are in a jurisdiction that now requires mandatory climate risk disclosure, which is the case in many legislation, even if that legislation is changing as we go. We know about what's happening in Europe. I'm sure you've been following the evolution of the disclosure requirements recently, a few weeks ago, with the
Omnibus,
adjustments
yeah.
to the scope of the reporting. So the industry at large is already quite engaged in the process of embedding and or understanding where sustainability is and what it represents. I think the problem is more about the doing, the action of sustainability, the transitioning the operations and the value chain of your business. It's not about planning, it's about doing. So again, creating a culture of doing is much more important at this stage than all the reporting and planning. We've done it. The reporting and planning is done, guys. Good news. Check that box. If you look at the website of most companies in the world today, a very large percentage of them talk about their sustainability agenda or impact, wherever they are. Pharma, food systems, all of them, they talk about it. The question is how much they do in terms of the actual operational transformation of the systems. So that's what I think we need to insist and insist and spend more time on. And for that, I think it requires leadership to make the decision they need to make. And I think it requires a sustainability team to do the cost-benefit analysis that shows that it's feasible. It needs to create the culture and the mindset in organization so that every layer of the organization is engaged into the transformation and understand the purpose and the vision and the opportunity. So it's again another transformation to operate, and it may be the biggest transformation that we'll ever drive. I think today, if you look at what the key transformation platforms are, whether it's around population, technology, sustainable climate, are the big opportunities for humanity. Yeah. So how do we if you ask me the question, how do we drive technology transformation? How do we adapt to a new market? How do we adjust to the climate risk and opportunities? They're all the big questions that leaders, CEO, boards need to deal with today and are dealing with. The question is, are they making decisions fast enough to actually transform the organizations? And how do they handle or manage the bumps on the way? Because none of that is linear and none of that is particularly simple. So again, I think I go back to the idea of creating a mindset and a culture as the unlocker to achieve the velocity of the transformation we need to achieve. And I keep believing and insisting that this transformation can be incredibly profitable if it's done strategically and if it's done while we sell the vision of what it can achieve.
I think for me, it's you're right. We've gone past reporting and planning. Now it's doing, and I think that's really the elephant in the room.
What small things, what symbolic, small but meaningful things we can change now without waiting for all the planets to align because
True.
they won't they won't align. We know that.
Yeah.
That's an of transformation and also of market competition.
So what can we do today?
We can create a culture of sustainability leadership and we can empower organizations to transform their value chain, to significantly transform their environmental impact, to turn them from polluters to actual integrated companies who use natural capital as an asset that they can grow and improve and contribute to. And the end result is a society that has transformed the health profile of its population at large, and a society that lives in a cleaner, healthier, and more prosperous environment. It's a pretty simple and compelling vision. And I think that's a vision that we could all inspire to. I think there is one big hop and enabler that with the quantity of data and scenario modeling that we have today, thanks to the power of AI, we can also transition faster to the systems, to the sustainable systems. So I see AI as a ray of hope in that environment because it should help the sustainability team and the broader organizations to make the right decision in with understanding the data and the impact easier today than before. So I'm hopeful that there are a number of people out there that are developing the models and the interface so that companies can do that. Yeah.
On a last note, I know you're passionate about, you know, actions, you're passionate about sustainability, which is why you have co-authored the book, What Can We Do by Friday? Why is that important for you? And why do we all need to get a copy of the book? By the way, I have read some parts of the book and I love the stories and the practicality of the book. So it's not just it's stories that are practical, but I would like to hear from you. Why do you believe that we all need to get a copy of that book?
Well, it's because this is where Tony and I share all the insight and knowledge that we've accumulated over 30 years of experience driving sustainability and ESG in large organizations. Um, I started my career at Aveda, which was a beauty company. And at Aveda, we were selling the Uruku lipstick. The Uruku lipstick was using the pigment sourced from the Uruku bush and we're buying that from the Yawanawa tribe in the Amazon. And the little secret is that Aveda had the highest trial to conversion from any of the brands that were part of the Estée Lauder companies. We also had the highest royalty from customer loyalty. And as you know, in marketing, the biggest cost is in customer acquisition and customer loyalty. So here is a company that had such powerful stories and beautiful product that customers, once they tried it, they stayed with us forever and they loved it. So we had beautiful products that make customers happy. And it was done because we were integrating sustainability in the sourcing of the product, in the making of the product, in the communications. So why I think people should read the book is because we share stories and insights that I think can inspire people to make decisions without being ideological, without seeing it as a this is absolutely what you need to do now. No, on the opposite, I think we share the complexity of decision making and the complexity of how we transition the systems, which is the story I was sharing with you about the $1 billion dilemma. If you find an oil well in your garden, what will you do? What will I do? You know, these are questions I ask myself. What will I do if I find that? What can we expect from sort of simple, most essential human behaviors and motivation? So I just would like us to discuss all of that openly and do it in a way that's non-technical. And that's what the book is doing. And I hope that book can inspire more people to share stories and have conversations and debate ideas in a way that is collective and inclusive and a way that sort of take everybody's into consideration and at the end of the day help us reconnect with our ecosystem, our biosphere, help us live in the only planet we have for today until maybe we go on Mars. But I'm not a big believer on the going on Mars story
I'm not
personally.
either.
And actually there is a story in the book about going to Mars, and you should read the chapter because it's a little exercise where we ask you to draw a dot on a piece of paper, a small dot, and put it far away from you. And it says, "You see that dot over there?" And the answer is, "No, you can't see the dot." I said, "Well, distant to Mars, and you're not ready to get there." So there are stories like that. There are stories about how do you create change, how do you motivate change, and they're all, yeah. I think it's worth. I've always wanted to share what I've learned and how my experience. I was very lucky to grow up with people who were sailors and carpenters and gardeners and architects and builders, and I was raised around the pioneers of sustainability in the US, on the East Coast and between California, between Berkeley and Vermont. And I'm consider myself very lucky to have been educated by these people who the first people, the Rio Earth Summit in 1992, and so on and so on. So there is a history in sustainability. There's a culture and a history, and it's a discipline that's been built over generation. So I think it's important to transmit that knowledge to the new generations so they understand it's not a compliance or reporting requirement. It's much bigger. It's a system. It's a belief system that is grounded into a complete discipline that has many parts to it, that goes from management to science to environment and so much more. Engineering and science are all in the middle of all of that. So yeah, I'm very happy to share all of that, and the book does this. So what can we do by Friday? And it will be on sale on Earth Day, which is April 22nd. I hope everybody wakes up on that day and just look at the sky and thinks about our planet, because it's a beautiful thing to do. The same way that we have Mother Day, we have Earth Day. And so, yeah, the book is released on Earth Day, and I'm always happy to talk to people and share more stories and discuss each of the chapter and so forth. So thank you, Temi, for the opportunity to speak about all of that today. It's a real privilege to be on your podcast and speak to your listeners, and I can't wait to continue the conversation.
Sure. Before I let you go, David, I would like to hear one more story. And I love stories, and I would love to hear one more story because you've had 30 years of experience in the sustainability world. I'd like to hear a remarkable story where sustainability won. In your career, I love the story you talked about Avida and the customer loyalty because you embedded sustainability throughout. But I would like to go away with another big story where, it's another inspiration to embed sustainability.
Okay, sure. So let me read a few of the chapter titles, and then it will make people either smile or it will sort of surprise them. One of the chapter is called "A Letter to My Unborn Granddaughter." There's a chapter called "Fuck the Planet, Save Yourself." Another one is called "I Love My Wife." Another one I mentioned, "The $1 billion Dilemma," "The Edge of Innocence." There is the marshmallow test, which I think the marshmallow test would be excellent for the boardroom to do that test. We'll talk about that later. There's a beautiful little story called About Emily, which I love very much. There is a story of the disposable coffee cups. Um, I talk about that one because I think it speaks to the audience of sustainability leader. And so the get rid of the coffee cups, and I'll never forget the scene. I am walking through our corporate cafeteria with our CEO. He's a big, sharp man, dressed in black, British breed, fast walker, with a copious amount of impatience. And next to him, I look well-intentioned, French, and hesitant. And he throws at me, "Get rid of the disposable coffee cups by next Monday." And so that was my first mandate as a newly appointed Chief Sustainability Officer of New Zealand's largest retail group, a multi-billion-dollar business. Remove the disposable coffee cups. So barely the dream job I had envisioned, right? And what burns through my mind is I am the best paid coffee cup manager in this business. That's a medal of honor that I do not want to pin on my jacket. But reflect for a second. What I was lacking at that time was vision. The vision is that if you astutely reach people where it matters to them, you open a line of communications which you can then leverage to your most noble intentions. So, said differently, if you want to accelerate climate action around you, don't even start by going to the global thermostat alone, pretending that your Herculean ego will change the course of humanity. It will not. So, who will? Well, an army, a team, a movement. In the case of our business, 12,000 people, team members. So, removing the disposable coffee cups from our corporate cafeteria cracked open the door of a conversation that never stopped. 12,000 team members became supporters of making small changes matter. And small changes quickly became big ones. I'll tell you what we were able to achieve immediately after the coffee cups. We made the business the first large retailer in Australasia to become carbon neutral. We committed to selling product using 100% sustainable packaging or certified ingredients. We switched 100% of our corporate cars to EVs. We became the first large business in New Zealand to switch all our electricity to solar energy. We launched the largest e-waste and plastic waste recycling program in the country. And the list goes on and on and on. A small act snowballed into an utterly complete transformation. So, that's a story I'm going to share with you. Because what can you do by Friday? First, you can remove these damn disposable coffee cups. Compostable or not, they are useless. Second, you can open the line of communication with your team members. Third, you can recognize that eating an elephant is something you do one bite at a time. Fourth, you can start writing the list of opportunities you have already in your control to reduce your carbon emissions and save money. And fifth, you can execute now, by tomorrow and Friday alike.
That's a powerful story. And that's the power of acting one step at a time. Thank you so much, David. You see why stories are powerful. I was enthralled by that story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It was a real privilege and an honor to be there. And thank you so much for your questions. Some of them are clearly challenging, and it's great to be challenged to think this through carefully. I'm available to speak with anyone that wants to explore the topic further. And thank you again for giving me the chance to speak about that topic, Temi.
And to my audience, please go on Amazon, April 22. What can we do by Friday?
Thanks again.